Hey everyone, it's Maureen. I am finally getting started on this project, well after I said I was going to, but that's life. I've been working a lot with my husband and with my regular job, so when everybody is short-staffed, all sorts of extra work ends up happening. But I wanted to show you the materials that I was going to use for this project. Right here we have string or fabric coated wire. Now this is millinery wire. It's 5 meters of it actually. I'm not going to use the entire 5 meters for this project, but I figured coated wire would be a bit better, especially since some of the ends will end up on the inside of the ceramic. And I won't leave raw ends. I will fold these over and tuck them in, and you'll have a rounded edge, so that rubbing up against the porcelain won't be so bad. If you were using uncoated wire, or wire that didn't really have much of a finish, what I'd recommend, besides turning over the ends and creating a little loop, I'd recommend possibly using a dip-like item. Dip being the kind of a small can that they normally use to coat the ends of metal tools with a rubbery-like coating. That could be useful in this project, but you would only need a very small amount. If not, you could always cover the ends with tape or something else that could protect the inside of your porcelain head, hands, and feet. We have linen fabric. This is the medium, not quite heavyweight, but definitely medium weight fabric that I used for my set of stays. We have quite a bit of it, probably close to a yard. I'm not going to use the entire amount for this. I'm going to actually purpose thinner areas because it's a doll after all, and I can definitely piece this, but something like this edge here I can definitely use for arms or legs or something. So, and a lot of it's doubled over. So going to use this nice heavy weight linen fabric. And then a poly stuffing. I do have some beads that I could use. I could technically use sawdust, but I don't really have access to it. This is a brand called Buffalo Snow, but there's other brands out there. It's a typical poly stuffing you can get at your normal arts and crafts store. This I bought at Goodwill. Always give your secondhand friends a good shake when you can. So I got this at Goodwill for $1.99, but you can, which is less because it's only part of a bag of stuffing. But I'm not even going to use the entire amount of stuffing on this project either, but having a small bag would definitely be relatively helpful for this kind of project. So yeah, poly stuffing, linen fabric, wire, and then the head, hands, and feet of the doll that you are making. So in a little bit here, we will get to patterning. All right, and here we have just a piece of the larger stack of fabric pulled out, and for reference and size I put the little doll head up top here, and I made this a little bigger than I normally would for the finished piece because I'm taking into consideration at least a little bit of seam allowance. So more or less it's going to be a sackcloth like body, and keep in mind these arms and legs may look a little short. However, there's going to be additional inches added on with the head, hands, and feet. Let's see. It's about almost 4 inches for the feet from the shin, which is right below the knee, and about 3.5 for the hands. So that's also something to take into consideration. How tall are the pieces you're using? And I don't go crazy on the chalk that I use. I bought a whole bunch of this And since all of that chalk markings goes on the inside where the stuffing is, it's not going to really show. So I use this for marking out my patterns. And cool part about chalk is you can easily just take a knife and file down an edge, and then you have a nice sharp edge that you can draw with. So don't forget that there are really lots of interesting and very nifty sewing tools out there. However, you don't necessarily have to spend an insane amount of money. You can repurpose or find ways of marking temporarily on things with the most simplest stuff. I mean, I bought a whole bag of sidewalk chalk for maybe $1.50. Save money where you can. Buy the things that you need to buy, or buy the things that you want to get. But when you can, save a buck. And, you know, it's going to be hidden on the inside anyway. I'm going to use these for the arms. I may not keep these arms. That's why this piece is out here. Just in case. But onward to sewing. All right. So here's the cutout. Now keep in mind that I do plan on creating some gores and side pieces here based off some doll models, just to figure out where we're at. All right, so let's see what our overall measurement is. Okay, so our overall measurement with the longer legs was like 22 inches tall. I'm really not wanting to make her that tall, because the bigger you make the doll, the more challenging it becomes if their body looks bigger than the rest of their head, hands, and feet. So we're down to 18 inches on this one. So now it's time for sewing. All right, everybody, and now our pattern piece is sewn. What I did is I did a typical seam all the way around the outside, all the way across the top, on the underarm, and over here. I'm not too concerned with shaping because the undergarments for this particular item are going to do the shaping. And Jace is letting you know that he helped too. I kept the inner legs open so I can flip this after I iron the seams open. So, time for a press. All right, so here we are flipped inside out. Now keep in mind that the doll head is going to be going over this part, so I don't need to have a neck hole. And then I will just sew up the inside of the legs next. Okay, folks, this is where we're at. So I started stuffing the body, and you can tell that it is a little squishy, but actually I am stuffing this very firmly. And the reason that I'm doing that is I would like the body to be able to stand up all on its own without very little assistance from wire, other than one wire being run through the arms and one through the legs. I want this to be able to stand up relatively without any support from a doll stand. So with that, firmly stuffing this is very important. And as you can see, just measuring along there, we have a nice firm fit. And these will have to be stitched into place. I'm going to actually pull the elbows up into this and make this a very tight looping from one hole, because there's holes on the back, to the other, which will create more of an armpit. Then I will finish off the bottom edges of these arms. Of course, I gotta sew this up yet too. But it's definitely looking more like a doll. So, be back with a little bit more progress. Hey everybody. Alright, so this is where we're at. I've put a wire from shoulder to shoulder all the way through arm to arm. And then I flip it over a couple times just like this to hide the raw end, because I can't As long as I can't feel and poke myself, then it's not going to scratch anything. I stuffed this very firmly, as I said, because I really don't want it to be that squishy. And then this is what it looks like when you get the arm sewn on. I mean, don't skimp on the stitches. You don't want your porcelain arms and legs to come off because you didn't sew them well. Don't skimp. Do it proper. Same thing here. I'm going to go down the front and over on the sides 5 or 6 times each, front and back, and then also put a seam through the doll body, front and back, to the separate holes, because there's holes on front and back, like that. Also, when you're stuffing this, you'll want a rounded end, and then you're going to want a flat side. The reason I say that is the flat side on the back actually is just like how we're formed. She's more round on the front here than she is on the back side of the doll. So you do want to kind of follow when you're stuffing this, even though this is literally a front piece and a back piece stitched together and stuffed firmly. You still want to try to emulate a natural body shape. I'm not too concerned about having a lot of shaping front and back right now, because in the Elizabethan times, the corsets made you flat anyway, so I'm not worried that she doesn't have breasts right here right now. That's okay. With the corset that I'm making, I can go ahead and just make that to suit, and if I need to stuff it to create a little bit of a curve, I can. That's when I would worry about it, when I'm creating a set of Elizabethan stays for this doll. I still have yet to do the bottom yet, to attach the legs, but we're getting there. We've at least got an arm on. We'll get this other one on. I'm going to do the head last. Legs, stuffing, wire, and then adding and sewing the legs on is where we're at on this. But so far, this definitely could be an evening project. So I'll check in a bit. And here we are. She's complete. So very similar situation about when I put on the other arm. I did the same with the legs. So I ended up putting a interior seam in here, just butting it together and stitching it up with linen thread. I did some whip stitches in the middle to try to keep this from splitting. And then did some gathering stitches around the holes on the sides of the legs. And then attached the head. As I said, I did about 6 stitches, 3 on each side, front, and also back. I think our friend's a little crooked at times. Not quite sway back, but, you know. Not perfect, but still plenty fine. I have this line you're seeing here is actually the wire that I put in that just basically goes up and down into each leg. I put a little stuffing in the legs too, just to give that wire a little extra cushion in that case. But yeah, she's done. She doesn't quite stand the way that I want. I mean, I do have doll stands if I really need to. But she does sort of lean, and I will play around with the wire a little bit and see what I can do with that. I might possibly need to put one up the back, but we'll see what happens. I mean, she's still sturdy enough that, you know, you can definitely hold her without a lot of whatnot. I think the tricky part is that the bottom of the shoes are glazed also, which makes that slippery for your standard surfaces. But nonetheless, we are done, and she looks fantastic. And we'll look at making her underwear in one of the next upcoming videos. So if you liked this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I upload every other Friday, and dolls is one of the many different topics we cover here besides Tudor clothing and other historical topics. I'll talk to you again later. Bye-bye.